Grand Admiral Vorath stood alone in the dark command room of his flagship. The holographic star map floated before him, showing thousands of conquered worlds glowing in the proud purple of the Kaleri Dominion. His four eyes moved slowly across the display until they stopped on a small blue planet at the edge of an unremarkable, spiral-armed Earth, the third planet of the Sol system. There was no strategic data attached to it, no invasion plans, no resource assessments, just a single red warning symbol that had been there for as long as anyone could remember. Vorath had asked his advisors about it many times. They always gave the same answer. They did not know why the warning existed. They only knew that every elder species in the galaxy said the same thing. Do not touch Earth. Do not contact Earth. Do not even look at Earth. Vorath found this deeply irritating. He had spent 200 cycles building the greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen. His fleet had crushed empires that spanned 100 star systems. His soldiers had killed billions. His name was spoken with fear on 10,000 worlds. And yet, single primitive planet made the elders nervous. He called a meeting of his war council the next morning. 12 of his most trusted generals gathered in the strategic chamber, their scaled bodies gleaming under the cold lights. They waited in respectful silence as Vorath entered and took his seat at the head of the long table. I want to discuss Earth, Vorath said. The room became very quiet. General Keth, the oldest and most decorated of his commanders, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Admiral, the protocols are clear. Earth is a restricted zone. We are not permitted to. I know what the protocols say, Vorath interrupted. I want to know why they exist, no one answered. Vorath leaned forward. We have conquered 2,047 worlds. We have defeated the Morthok hegemony, the Iron Swarm, and the priests of the Burning Sun. We are the most powerful military force in known space. And you are telling me that we are afraid of one small planet with no fleet, no planetary shields, and a species that still fights among itself? General Keth spoke carefully. The warnings come from species far older than us, Admiral. The Vrix Collective was one of them. They encountered Earth 60 of their cycles ago. They sent an invasion force of 300 ships, and, Vorath asked, none of them returned. The Vrix Empire collapsed within a decade. No one knows exactly what happened. The records were destroyed. Vorath made a dismissive sound. The Vrix were weak. Their technology was outdated even by the standards of their time. We are not the Vrix. With respect, Admiral, another general said, the Vrix were not the only ones. The Thornax sent a scouting party to Earth 2 centuries ago. Only one ship came back. The crew had gone mad. They spoke of creatures that would not stop fighting, even when their bodies were destroyed. They spoke of a species that did not understand the concept of surrender. Vorath laughed. It was a harsh clicking sound that echoed through the chamber. Madness and fairy tales. This is what guides our strategic thinking now. Stories told by broken soldiers and dying empires. He stood up and walked to the holographic display. With a gesture, he enlarged the image of Earth. The planet hung in the air before them, blue and green and white. Beautiful, in a primitive sort of way. Look at them, Vorath said. They have no unified government. They spend most of their energy fighting each other over invisible lines on their maps. Their weapons are crude. Their space program is barely functional. They cannot even agree on basic facts about their own planet. He turned to face his generals. These are the creatures that terrify you. No one spoke. I have made my decision, Vorath announced. We will take Earth. The fleet departs in 3 rotations. Far across the galaxy on the blue planet that Vorath had just condemned, a young man named Doyun was working late in his observatory. He was an astronomer at a research facility in Dajin, South Korea. Most nights, he studied distant galaxies and wrote papers that very few people read. It was quiet work, and he liked it that way. But tonight, something unusual appeared on his instruments. At first, he thought it was a malfunction. The readings showed a massive energy signature approaching the solar system. Not one object. Hundreds of them. Moving in formation. Moving fast. Duhayan ran the calculations 3 times. Then he ran them again. The results were the same every time. Something was coming. He picked up his phone and dialed. A number that he had been given years ago. A number he had been told to use only in the most extreme circumstances. A woman answered on the second ring. "This is Commander Yuna." Doyan's voice was steady, even though his hands were shaking. "Commander, this is Doyan at the Dajan Observatory. I am detecting a large fleet entering our solar system. Approximately 900 vessels. Military configuration. They will reach Earth in approximately 31 days. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Yuna spoke again, her voice was calm and cold. "You're certain of this?" "Yes, Commander. How long have you been tracking them?" 17 minutes. "I wanted to verify the data before making contact." "You did well? Maintain observation. Report any changes directly to me. Do not discuss this with anyone else." "Understood." Doyen hesitated. "Commander, what do we do?" Yuna was silent for a moment. When she answered, her voice carried a weight that Doyen did not fully understand. "We do what we have always done, Doyen. We wake up the old guard." The call ended. Doyen sat alone in his observatory, staring at the screen that showed the approaching fleet. 900 ships. He tried to imagine what that looked like. He tried to imagine the species that had sent them. He tried to imagine what they wanted. He could not. But somewhere in the back of his mind, in a place he did not often visit, he felt something strange. It was not fear. It was not panic. It was almost like anticipation, as if some ancient part of him, buried deep beneath centuries of civilization and peace, was slowly waking up, on the other side of the world. Commander Yuna made 3 more phone calls. Each one was short. Each one contained the same message. Within an hour, people began to move. Old soldiers who had not worn uniforms in decades put on their boots. Scientists who had publicly retired opened hidden laboratories. Factories that appeared abandoned on satellite images began to hum with power. The world did not know it yet. The governments did not know it yet. Even the approaching alien fleet did not know it yet. But Earth was preparing for war, and Earth had never lost a war that mattered. The Kolari fleet arrived in Earth's orbit on the 31st day, exactly as Doyan had predicted. 900 warships arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the planet. Each ship was larger than anything humans had ever built. Each one carried enough firepower to level a continent. Grand Admiral Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked down at the blue world beneath him. It was smaller than he had expected, more fragile looking. The clouds moved slowly across its surface, and the lights of cities glittered on the dark side. He felt almost disappointed. "Open a channel to the planet," he commanded. "All frequencies." His communications officer obeyed. A moment later, Vorath's voice echoed across every radio, every television, every phone, and every computer on Earth. "People of Earth, I am Grand Admiral Vorath of the Kolari Dominion. Your planet is now under our control. You will surrender all military forces, all governmental authority, and all planetary resources to us immediately. Those who cooperate will be treated fairly. Those who resist will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to respond." The message ended. Vorath leaned back in his command chair and waited. In bunkers and command centers around the world, leaders gathered to discuss their options. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to pray, but in a small building on the outskirts of Seoul. A different kind of meeting was taking place, Commander. Yuna sat across a table from an old man named Taiho. He was 67 years old. His hair was gray, and his face was lined with the marks of time. But his eyes were sharp and clear, and his hands did not shake. "You understand what we are asking you to do," Yuna said. Taiho nodded slowly. "You want me to go up there? Alone? And deliver a message?" "Yes. And if they kill me?" Yuna's expression did not change. "Then we proceed to the next phase." Taiho was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the wall where an old photograph hung. It showed a group of young soldiers standing in the ruins of a city. Some of them were smiling. Most of them were covered in blood and dust. Taiho was in the center of the group, 35 years younger, holding a weapon that no longer officially existed. I was there in 2031, he said softly. When the Vrix came, I was 23 years old. I thought we were all going to die. But you didn't die, Una said. No. Tai-Ho smiled, but there was no humor in it. We didn't. He stood up and took his coat from the back of his chair. Prepare the shuttle. I will deliver your message. 1 hour later, a small shuttle rose from the Korean peninsula. It carried no weapons. It had no shields. It was barely larger than a car. The Kaleri detected it immediately. 100 targeting systems locked onto it. 100 weapons prepared to fire. But Vorath raised his hand. Let it come, he said. I want to see what kind of creature comes to negotiate with the conqueror of worlds. The shuttle docked with the flagship. Kalari soldiers lined the corridors, their weapons ready. They expected an army. They expected a delegation of frightened politicians. Instead, a single old man walked down the ramp. Tai-Ho moved slowly through the ship. He did not look at the soldiers. He did not react to their weapons. He walked as if he were taking a morning stroll through a park. The Kaleri did not know what to make of him when he reached the bridge. Vorath was waiting. The Admiral towered over the human, his 4 eyes examining Tai-Ho with cold curiosity. You are the one they sent to surrender? Vorath asked. Tai-Ho smiled. It was a gentle smile, the kind a grandfather might give to a child who had made a foolish mistake. I am here to offer you the same courtesy we offered the Vrix 60 years ago. Leave now, and your species survives. Vorath laughed. The sound was harsh and loud, echoing through the bridge. His officers joined him, their clicking laughter filling the air. You threaten us? Vorath said when he had recovered. You threaten the Kalari Dominion? With what? Your planet has no fleet, no planetary shields, no weapons capable of scratching our ships. You are nothing. Tai-Ho did not react to the laughter. He simply reached into his coat and pulled out a small data chip. He placed it on the console in front of Vorath. This contains footage from the Vrix War, Tai-Ho said. Show it to your soldiers. Watch it yourself. Then decide. Vorath looked at the chip. It was tiny, almost pathetic. What is this? Propaganda? No, Admiral. It is a record. A record of what happened when the last species tried to take our world. Tai-Ho's voice was calm, almost kind. I am 67 years old. I have lived a good life. I have a wife, 2 children, and 4 grandchildren. I do not want war. No human wants war. But if you force us to fight, we will. He turned and began to walk away. Vorath called after him. You think this changes anything? You think a recording will make us abandon our conquest? Tai-Ho stopped at the door. He turned back, and for a moment, something changed in his eyes. The gentle old man was gone. In his place was something older, something harder, something that remembered blood and fire and the screams of dying aliens. Admiral, I am being polite because my commander asked me to be polite. But let me be clear about something. The footage on that chip is not a threat. It is not meant to scare you. It is simply information. He paused. The threat is what comes after you watch it and decide to stay anyway. Then he walked out. The Kaleri let him go. They were too confused to stop him. Vorath stood alone on the bridge for a long time after the human shuttle departed. He held the data chip in his hand, turning it over and over. Admiral. His first officer said, Should I have it analyzed for traps? No. Vorath shook his head. Prepare a private viewing room. I will watch it alone. That night, Grand Admiral Vorath sat in darkness and watched the footage from the Vrix War. The recording lasted for hours. When it was over, he did not move for a very long time. His 4 eyes, which had never known fear, had learned a new emotion, and when dawn broke over Earth, the Grand Admiral of the Kalari Dominion was still sitting in that dark room, staring at a blank screen, unable to forget what he had seen, unable to forget the faces of creatures who smiled while they killed, unable to forget the sound of a species that refused to surrender, even when surrender was the only logical choice, unable to forget the terrible, beautiful madness of humanity at war. The footage was not organized. It was not edited. It was simply raw combat recordings pulled from Vrix, drones and soldiers during their invasion of Earth. The quality was poor in many places. Some clips were only a few seconds long. Others lasted for minutes that felt like hours, but every frame was burned into Vorth's memory. The first clip showed a small town in a mountainous region. A school. The Vrix had landed their dropships in the main square, expecting easy surrender. Instead, they found a woman named Mingy. She was a teacher, 34 years old. She had 12 students with her, the oldest only 16. When the Vrix broke through the school's front door, Mingy was waiting for them with a hunting rifle that belonged to her father. The Vrix combat. Drone recorded everything. Mingy killed the first soldier with a single shot to the head. She killed the second before he could raise his weapon. Then she pushed her students into the basement and told them to hide. For 6 hours, she held that building. The Vrix sent squad after squad. Mingy moved through the hallways like a ghost, appearing from doorways and windows, firing, disappearing. When she ran out of ammunition, she used knives. When her knives broke, she used her hands. The drone footage showed her face during the battle. She was not crying. She was not screaming. She was smiling. A small, focused smile, as if she were solving a difficult math problem. By the time reinforcements arrived, Mingy had killed 43 Vrix soldiers. She had been shot twice. She had a broken arm and 3 cracked ribs. She was still standing in front of the basement door when the Korean army found her. Her students were safe. All 12 of them. Vorath paused the footage. He looked at the frozen image of Mingy's face. Her eyes held something he did not understand. Not rage, not hatred. Something deeper. Something more terrifying. She was protecting her children, and nothing in the universe would stop her. The second clip was from a factory district in a large city. The Vrix had deployed a command walker, a massive machine that stood 30 meters tall. It was destroying buildings, clearing the path for ground troops. A man named Sun Woo worked in one of those factories. He was 41 years old, a simple worker who had never held a weapon in his life. When the walker appeared, most people ran. Sun Woo did not run. The footage showed him climbing into a cargo truck. He filled the back with gas canisters and industrial explosives from the factory storage room. Then he drove straight at the walker. The Vrix tried to shoot him. Their weapons hit the truck 3 times. It caught fire. Sun Woo kept driving. He crashed the truck into the walker's leg and detonated the explosives. The explosion destroyed the walker. It also should have killed Sun Woo. The Vrix combat reports listed him as dead, but 40 minutes later, another drone spotted him. He was walking out of the burning wreckage. His left arm was broken in 2 places. His face was covered in blood. He was carrying a metal pipe, and he was moving toward the Vrix front line. The drone tracked him for 3 hours. In that time, Sun Woo killed 11 more soldiers. He never said a word. He never showed any sign of pain. He just kept walking and killing until a human rescue team finally pulled him out. When they asked him why he did it, his answer was simple. They were hurting my city. I wanted them to stop. The third clip was perhaps the strangest. It showed an apartment building in a coastal area. The Vrix had expected this area to be an easy target. It was mostly elderly residents and young families. They were wrong. A woman named Bora lived in that building. She was 72 years old. She had survived the Korean War as a child. She had survived poverty, disease, and loss. She had buried her husband 10 years ago and her son 5 years ago. She was not ready to die, and she was definitely not ready to let aliens kill her neighbors. When the Vrix landed, Bora organized her entire building into a fighting force. She used everything she could find: kitchen knives, cleaning chemicals, electrical wires. She downloaded engineering manuals from the internet and taught her neighbors how to build traps. The Vrix sent a gunship too. Destroy the building. Bora and her neighbors brought it. Down the footage showed the impossible scene. A 72-year-old woman standing on a rooftop, directing a team of housewives and retired workers as they used homemade weapons to disable an alien warship. When the gunship crashed, Bora did not celebrate. She simply turned to her neighbors and said, "Good, now let us prepare for the next one." But it was the final clip that destroyed Vor. It showed a young soldier named Hajon. He was 22 years old. He had been a soldier for only 18 months. His unit had been ambushed and destroyed. He was the only survivor. The footage came from the personal recorder of a Vrix general. The general had cornered Hajon in a burning city square. 50 soldiers surrounded him. His weapon was empty. His uniform was torn and bloody. The general approached, confident in his victory. "Surrender, human," the general said through his translator. "Your fight is over." Hajon looked at him. His face was young, almost boyish. But his eyes were ancient, no, Hajon said simply. He reached into his vest and pulled out a grenade. The Vrix soldiers raised their weapons, but it was too late. Hajon smiled. "Humans do not surrender," he said. "We just have not finished killing you yet." He pulled the pin. The explosion killed the general and 17 soldiers. The shockwave threw Hajon across the square and buried him under rubble. The Vrix listed him as dead. 3 days later, he appeared again, leading a civilian militia of 200 people. They retook the city in 48 hours. After the war, the Vrix High Command added a single classification to humanity's file before their empire collapsed: Apex Persistence. Predator, do not engage. Voreth sat in the dark viewing room for hours after the footage ended. He did not move. He did not speak. He simply stared at the blank screen and tried to understand what he had seen. These creatures were soft. They were fragile. Their bodies broke easily, but their spirits did not break. They did not understand defeat. They did not accept death. They simply kept fighting until they won or until nothing was left. And in that moment, Grand Admiral Vorath realized something terrible. The warnings were not exaggerated. The elder species were not cowards. They were survivors. They had looked at humanity and understood what Vorath was only now beginning to see. Some species were too dangerous to fight, not because they were strong, but because they did not know how to stop. The Emergency War Council began at dawn. Vorath had not slept. He had spent the entire night reading every piece of information Kalari Dominion had ever collected about Earth. Historical records, scientific studies, cultural analyses. He read them all with new eyes, and with each page, his fear grew deeper. His 12 generals sat around the long table waiting for him to speak. They had never seen their admiral like this. His movements were slow. His voice was quiet. His 4 eyes kept drifting to something that was not in the room. "I have watched the footage," Vorath said finally. "The footage from the Vrix War." General Keth leaned forward. "And what did you see?" Vorath was silent for a long moment. "I saw the end of empires." The generals exchanged confused glances. Supreme Commander Keth slammed his fist against the table. "Admiral, with respect, this is madness. They are primitives. One species on one planet. We have 900 warships in orbit. We have conquered thousands of worlds. Whatever they did to the Vrix, they cannot do to us." "Can they not?" Vorath asked softly. He activated the holographic display in the center of the table. Images began to appear. Not military images. It's not weapons or technology. Maps, biological diagrams, historical records. "I asked our scientists to analyze everything we know about humanity," Vorath said. "I asked them to explain why the elder species fear them so much. I asked them to tell me what makes humans different from every other species we have conquered." He paused. The answer terrified me. The first image showed a primitive human chasing an animal across a vast grassland. The animal was faster, stronger, better adapted for short bursts of speed, but the human kept following. "They are pursuit predators," Vorath explained. "In the early days of their species, they hunted by chasing their prey across entire continents. They would follow an animal for days, never stopping, never resting, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. then they would kill it. General Keth made a dismissive sound. Many species hunt in unusual ways. This means nothing. No, General. It means everything. Vorath changed the image. Look at their bodies. They are not strong. They are not fast. They have no natural weapons, no claws, no fangs, no armor. By all logic, they should have died out millions of years ago. Then why did they survive? Because of this. Vorath pointed to a diagram of the human brain. They evolved to never give up. Their bodies produce chemicals that reduce pain and increase focus when they are injured or exhausted. They can continue functioning long after any other species would collapse. They can ignore wounds that would kill us 3 times over. He changed the image again. This time, it showed a graph. We analyzed the survival rates of various species when facing overwhelming odds. When defeat is certain, 97% of species surrender. It is logical. Survival is paramount. He pointed to a single line on the graph that went in the opposite direction. Humans do the reverse. When defeat seems certain, they become more dangerous. They fight harder. They take more risks, sacrifice themselves to take their enemies with them. Their survival instinct is inverted. Instead of protecting themselves, they protect their group, their family, their species. General Keth was quiet now. The other generals were staring at the graph with growing unease. But that is not what makes them truly terrifying, Vorath continued. He brought up the next image. It showed a human historian named Jiho. He was sitting in an office in Seoul, surrounded by books and documents. This man has spent his entire life compiling a single archive. Every invasion humanity has ever faced. Every enemy they have ever fought. Every wrong that has ever been done to them. Dates, names, locations, every detail preserved. Vorath's voice dropped to barely a whisper. They do not forget, General. They do not forgive. They pass their grudges down through generations like sacred texts. A wrong done to a human's ancestor 1,000 years ago is still remembered today, still felt, still capable of driving them to war. He turned off the display and looked at his generals with hollow eyes. We are not facing a species, General Keth. We are facing a vendetta given flesh, a species that has spent millions of years perfecting the art of not giving up. A species that will chase us across the galaxy if we hurt them. Species that will tell their children about us, and their children's children, until the end of time. The room was silent. Far below, on the surface of Earth, Commander Yuna was monitoring the Kolrai communications. She sat in a bunker deep beneath Seoul, surrounded by screens and equipment that officially did not exist. She could not understand the Kalari language, but she did not need to. The tone of the voices told her everything she needed to know. They were afraid. She allowed herself a small smile beside her. A young officer named Jimin looked up from his screen. Commander, the alien fleet is not moving. They have been stationary for over 6 hours. Yuna nodded. They are thinking about what? About whether they want to live. Jimin did not understand. He was young. He had not been alive during the Vrix War. He did not know what humanity was capable of when pushed, but Yuna knew. She had been there. She had seen what ordinary people could do when their families were threatened. She had watched farmers and teachers and office workers become the most terrifying soldiers the galaxy had ever seen, not because they were trained, not because they were special, but because they were fighting for something real. Back on the Kalari flagship, Vorath was making his decision. We must withdraw, he said. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Several generals began to protest, but Vorath raised his hand. I have spent my entire life conquering worlds. I have never retreated from any enemy. But I have also never faced an enemy like this. He looked at each of his generals in turn. They are small and fragile and primitive, and they are the most dangerous species in the known universe. Because they do not care about the odds. They do not care about logic. They do not care about survival. He paused. They only care about winning. And they will burn everything, including themselves, to achieve it. General Keth opened his mouth to argue, but something in Vorath's eyes stopped him. For the first time in his long career, the general realized that his admiral was not making a tactical decision. He was making a survival decision. Prepare the fleet, Vorath ordered. We leave at sunset. and in bunkers and command centers around Earth, men and women who had been preparing for war slowly began to stand down. Not because they were relieved, but because they knew humanity had won again, and they had not even needed to fight. The Kalari fleet began its withdrawal as the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. 900 warships, each one capable of destroying cities, turned away from Earth and began the long journey home. Their weapons powered down. Their formation broke apart. They moved like wounded animals retreating to their dens. Grand Admiral Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched Earth grow smaller on his screens. The blue planet hung in space, peaceful and quiet, as if nothing had happened, as if the greatest military force in the galaxy had not just abandoned its conquest. His officers worked in silence. No one knew what to say. In 300 cycles of war, the Kalari Dominion had never retreated. They had lost battles. They had lost ships. But they had never simply turned around and left, until now. "Admiral," the communications officer said, breaking the silence, "we are receiving a transmission from Earth." Vorath's 4 eyes narrowed. "From their military?" "No, Admiral. From a civilian address? A residential area in a coastal city. A civilian." Vorath frowned. "Put it through." The screen flickered, and then a face appeared. It was an old woman. Very old. Her hair was white and thin. Her face was covered with deep wrinkles. She sat in a simple garden, surrounded by flowers and small trees. Behind her, Vorath could see the ocean, calm and blue in the morning light. "Admiral Vorath," the woman said. Her voice was soft but clear. "My name is Yunji. I am 91 years old. I was the commander who led the final counterattack against the Vrix fleet 60 years ago." Vorath stared at the screen. This tiny, fragile creature had destroyed an empire. "I know you have seen the footage," Yunji continued. "I know you understand now what we are. So let me give you the only truth that matters about humanity." She paused and looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were not the eyes of an old woman. They were the eyes of a soldier. The eyes of someone who had seen death and commanded armies and walked through fire. "We are not warriors because we love battle. We are warriors because we love what we protect. Our families, our children, our future." Every human being you saw in that footage was fighting for something real, something personal. They were not trained killers. They were parents and teachers and workers who decided that their loved ones would not die. Vorath found himself leaning forward, unable to look away. "And that is what makes us dangerous, Admiral. When you threaten those things, we do not calculate odds. We do not measure costs. We do not consider retreat. We simply decide that you will not exist anymore." Her voice softened, but the steel remained. "The Vrix learned this lesson. Now you have learned it. But let me be clear about something. I am not threatening you. I am not warning you. I am explaining a simple fact of nature." She smiled. It was a grandmother's smile, warm and gentle and absolutely terrifying. "Go home, Admiral. Tell your Dominion. Tell every empire in the galaxy. Earth is not undefended because we are weak. Earth is undefended because we do not need defenses. Anyone foolish enough to attack us becomes the lesson we teach to the next fool." She picked up a small cup of tea and took a sip. "We are humanity, and we have never lost a war that mattered." The transmission ended. Vorath stood in silence for a long time. His officers watched him, waiting for orders, waiting for some kind of response. Finally, he spoke. "Open a channel to all Kalari worlds. All outposts. All ships." The communications officer obeyed. "This is Grand Admiral Vorath. I am transmitting a message from Earth. Every citizen of the Dominion is ordered to watch it. Every military officer is ordered to study it. This message will be archived in our central database and preserved for all future generations." He paused. "I am also updating Earth's file in our strategic archives. Effective immediately, the Sol system is designated a restricted zone. No Kalari ship is permitted to enter for any reason. No contact of any kind is authorized." His first officer looked at him with confusion. Admiral, what designation should we use? Vora thought for a moment. Then he typed the words himself. Restricted zone. Extinction level. Threat nitrogen monoxide. Below the official designation, he added a personal note. A warning for any future admiral who might be foolish enough to question the order. They are small. They are fragile. They die easily. And they are the most dangerous species in the known universe. Because they do not care about survival. They care about victory. And they will sacrifice everything, including themselves, to achieve it. Do not go to Earth. Do not think about Earth. Forget that Earth exists. This is not advice. This is a command for your own survival. He signed his name and sealed the record. On Earth. Commander Yuna received the transmission of Vorth's fleet-wide message. She listened to the Admiral's words, watched the fleet disappear from orbital sensors, and then sat back in her chair. Beside her, Jimin was staring at his screen with wide eyes. They are leaving. They're actually leaving. Yes, Yuna said quietly. But how? We did not fire a single weapon. We did not even show them our defenses. How did we win? Yuna smiled. It was the same smile that Minji had worn while defending her students. The same smile that Hajan had worn while pulling the pin on his grenade. The smile of someone who understood something that the galaxy was only beginning to learn. We won because of what we are. Jimin, not what we have. She stood up and walked to the door, closed down the command center. Return all personnel to normal duties. And send a message to Taiho. Tell him his mission was successful. Tell him he can go home to his grandchildren. Jimin nodded, still processing what had happened. Yuna paused at the door and looked back. One more thing, Jimin. Make sure Yunji's message is archived. Every word. Every frame. The next time someone comes to conquer Earth, I want them to see it before they make their decision. And with that, she walked out into the morning light. The sun was rising over Seoul. Children were walking to school. Workers were heading to their offices. The world was moving on, unaware of how close it had come to war, but in hidden archives around the planet. Records were being updated. Weapons were being stored. Names were being added to lists of those who would be called if Earth was ever threatened again, because humanity had learned something a long time ago. Peace was wonderful, but peace only lasted if you were dangerous enough to keep it, and humanity was very, very dangerous. In a garden in Busan, Yunji finished her tea and looked out at the ocean. Somewhere beyond the sky, an alien fleet was running home to tell stories of the monsters that lived on the blue planet. She smiled. Let them tell their stories. Let them spread the word. Earth was not to be touched. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever. Because humanity did not fight for glory or conquest. Humanity fought for love, and that made them unstoppable.